I couldn't get anybody to even do it. They wouldn't even, the contractors wouldn't touch it.
On something small.
Contractors wouldn't touch it. Your dad had the best thing.
That's right. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope everybody's got a seat where they can see the screen, because obviously we're not. I happen to think that this wonderful sunshine and lack of storms is probably hurting our number tonight, because we did invite all of our HHTA members and the chamber members, but since nobody's been able to plant for many days because at this time of the day it's usually raining and storming and you can't do that, I have a feeling that today people looked outside and said, I can get the flowers in.
Here, sunshine versus research, come on.
I know.
But I wouldn't be here hearing myself if I didn't.
So I am Karen Raymore, the Executive Director of the Hocking Hills Tourism Association. And it's my pleasure to introduce Amir Alan. Many of you know Amir because for several years he was the esteemed Director of Tourism for Ohio. And then, of course, we lost him briefly to Washington, D.C. And then we got him back to go to Ohio, not as Director of Tourism, but with Longwoods International, certainly the premier research firm in our industry. And so we're very honored to have the president of Longwoods here with us tonight, Amir, to give us a presentation. We did this image assessment. The research was done over the winter. These are the results. This was step one in a research project that has multiple layers. The next step that is just started is a visitor, actually it's kind of a two-pronged thing, it's a visitor survey, and we have cards, so if you didn't get them in the mail, because we sent them a supply out to all of our members, or you need more, because you got, like Ellen, you're going to go through them like water probably, so take more. We ordered a bunch more, and it gives the URL to the SurveyMonkey survey. It also has a QR code, so somebody can take that survey with a mobile device, and I've tested it and it works quite well. SurveyMonkey is mobile friendly, so we're hoping to gather a lot of information about our visitors that are here. We are also, it just dropped last Friday, and we know for a fact it's arriving in everyone's mailbox, but we did an every door direct mail resident survey, because it's very important as we go forward with a sustainable destination management plan that our residents' opinions are taken into consideration. There are places in the world and even in this country where there's quite a conflict between visitors and residents. In some cases it's become violent, and we want to make sure that what we are doing is going to enhance the quality of life for everyone. And that requires input from the folks that live here. So we've asked them, I don't know that they've ever been asked their opinion before, but we have asked them that and we are getting responses. We're very pleased. So, but this is step one, and with that I'm going to let Amir take it away. He's the expert. Thank you for being here tonight.
Well, good evening, everyone. Oh, come on.
It's sunny out.
I know it's sunny out, and you were just waiting all day to hear research at the end of your work day. I know there's nothing more exciting. Let's try this again. Good evening, everyone. Oh, there we go. All right, so funny story today.
Good video.
I was chatting with my son on the way on my way out the door to the office, and he was on the way out to school this morning, and he was like, we were talking to my wife. I had a little road trip today, and she's like, well, where are you going this time? And I said, because I'm always on the road, and I said, oh, I'm just going down the road to Hocking Hills, and he's like, well, Dad, weren't you just there a few weeks ago? I said, yeah, I was there, and spoke to Karen's board and a few other stakeholders and that. And he's like, you were talking about tourism research, right, Dad? I'm like, yeah. I was like, what are you going to do today? I'm like, well, pretty much doing the same presentation for some more stakeholders. And he said, so you're going to talk twice in 1 month to the Hocking Hills about tourism? And I said, yeah. He goes, Dad, there is no way in hell those people want you twice in 1 month talking about tourism research in the Hocking Hills in there. So indulge me in 1 minute, 1 second here. I just got to take a quick little picture here, a little selfie for my son. So everybody kind of wave at Ben.
Ben, you're wrong.
And people showed up, see? It's all right, thank you for indulging me in that one little thing. So on to business. So yeah, my name is Amir Alan. I'm the president of Longwoods International, as Karen said. What is Longwoods International? We are a market research consultancy specializing in the travel and tourism industry. We are celebrating next month, will be our 40th anniversary, so we've been in this business a little while. We work currently with literally about 150 destinations all over North America, and doing business in about 12 countries currently as well. Destinations as large as Las Vegas, Orlando, New York, and more local and regional destinations like the Hocking Hills, and all shapes and sizes in between. There we do, as I said, we're a market research consultancy. Like I said, there's a difference between research and research consultants. Researchers pretty much just do the study, do the work, give you a bunch of numbers, and walk away. Consultants actually invest themselves in the client, in the destination. We help you tell the story, because research, like I said, on the surface is a bunch of numbers, a bunch of data points in there. And I like to think of us as helping be good storytellers and connecting all those dots for our clients there. And I am not a researcher by profession. As Karen told you, I come from the tourism side of the industry, and destination marketing is my specialty. Actually, this fall we celebrated my 30th year in the travel and tourism industry. I'm very proud of that. I've only been working for a research consultancy for about the last 3 years. But as a marketer, I've always known and believed in the importance of using research. All great marketing decisions should always be made on a solid foundation of research, period, in there. It is 95% research, 5% gut, because the gut thing kind of sometimes has a little coolness on the end of it. But really, you shouldn't be, you know, in any business, really, you should have your hands around the market that you're in. That's what the research provides. So Karen called us up last fall and said, you know, we've got a challenge here. You know, I want to embark on this process of taking a look at where we are and where we should be, and are we putting out the right messaging, et cetera, and it could lead to rebranding, it could lead, you know, the issues of, you know, community of product development within the community. You know, the park's getting several million visitors a year, but we only have X amount capacity, issues, et cetera, et cetera. How do we balance that? How do we get distribution of tourism more evenly throughout the county and the region, et cetera, and all these questions there. So after several conversations, you know, we recommended that we start off with a baseline image study. Let's take a look at not only where, you know, what the current consumers in your key feeder markets think about this destination, but let's also put it in the context of Hocking Hills versus your key competitive set. So now I'm going to jump into this little PowerPoint presentation that I have for you. And yes, it's a research presentation, so you will see charts and graphs and all that. The good news is, oh yeah, please.
I just noticed that they put refreshments out. If anybody wants to grab something,
I will not be insulted if you get up and grab food and beverage, please. You know, by all means, enjoy. I speak loud enough, I project, and it'll all be good. And actually, perfect segue, because I will have charts and graphs, and I'll move at a pretty good pace, because I could make this a 5-hour presentation, but why? So Karen, Karen will have. I'm sorry, the bad jokes continue all night. Ellen knows, you know, with me for too many years. But I will tell you this, that Karen has the presentation deck, and she willingly shares it with anybody who wants to take a look at it. So she's very happy to provide that to you there. So, or if you give me your card, with Karen's permission, if you give me your card and write HHTA on the back of it before you leave, well, I can email it to you also. It doesn't matter to me. So
we will actually, because we're videotaping this as well, so that we can put the actual full presentation, not just the slide deck.
So you get the deck and the bad jokes? Wow, this is great. Added value, people, added value. All right, so let's talk about it. So here comes the really boring part of things, because we have to tell you how we did the research, okay? Because otherwise I wouldn't be doing my job, and Emma will give me a little mild electric shock if I don't go through this part here. This is Emma McAfee, by the way. She's a member of our team, one of our junior analysts, and she helped connect a lot of these dots together for you in a very nice, orderly manner here today, so for you. So basically, we were hired to do an evaluation of the image of the Hocking Hills. Basically, we were looking at what are the image factors and attributes that are important in destination selection, what's important to people when they choose a destination like the Hocking Hills. We looked at you, as I said, in terms of your competitive set. So the competitive set that was given to us by the client was Brown County, Indiana, New River Gorge, West Virginia, Gatlinburg, Great Smoky Mountains, right, National Park in Tennessee, Seneca Caverns in West Virginia, and Lake Erie Shores and Islands, and Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina in there. So let's take a look. Again, objectives of the research, looking at the awareness of the advertising. Is the message being received out there in the marketplace, or what the HHTA has been putting out there in paid media? Looking at the image overall and in detail relative to its competitive set, as I said, and identifying the relative importance of various image factors and attributes, which I'll talk more about here in a moment, for travelers in the wish list. How do you get on the consideration side? How do you move? You know, there are so many places you can go. There are so many places to spend your money and your leisure time. How does a destination get on that consideration list and then make the final cut, right? So we'll talk about that. So this is what we call a benchmark study, because this type of research has never been done before for the Hocking Hills region. We are, this is a benchmark study. This is where you are kind of, considered today as kind of like ground zero there. And in the future, moving forward, if it becomes a priority to see how are you moving the needle, are you changing the image of the destination in certain ways, then you can follow up studies down the road. But this is kind of your baseline of where you're starting from today. Pretending you've never been in the marketplace before, this is where you are today. There, we talked to 1,000 households in those advertising markets where the advertising is being placed by the Hocking Hills Tourism Association. So Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, West Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Chicago, off the media buys of Hocking Hills Tourism Association. We talked to 1,000 folks. They're all members of a panel. How do we get to these folks? Well, we use a recruiting service that people sign up to be part of. People like talking about travel. People like talking about their travel experiences. It's very easy to go in the market and get people. But we screen people. We want people that have actually traveled recently and within the last couple of years and would want to travel within the next few years there, and obviously have the means to travel there. And of course, they have to be adults talking to us about. And it's called random sampling because we pull these people randomly out of there as long as they meet the minimal criteria. Everything was done proportionate by population. Again, we try to get a good cross section of the marketplace. So we factor in gender, race, ethnicity, etc. And their survey itself takes about 25 minutes to complete. There's literally almost 60 questions in that survey. But again, people like to talk about their travel experiences and thoughts about travel. Plus, people are usually incentivized if you've ever gotten that. If you take a few minutes to complete the survey, 1 out of every 50 or 100 people win a $100 gift card, Amex gift card, or a Starbucks gift card, or something like that. So that kind of helps people incentivize them to do that. In the survey, folks are shown copies of the advertising examples. I told you, I'm sorry, this is the boring part of this. Additional copies of the advertising, etc. But not shown they're not shown the advertising that's been done by HHTA in those markets until the very end, because we don't want to bias people. They don't know who the client is until the very end, really, of the survey. So there. And this is very recent, as Karen said. It was done right over the winter, January of this year. And then, of course, all the data gets weighted based on population, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're a scientist, I'm happy to go into greater detail on that. But the bottom line is, it is a good cross-section, and we make sure it doesn't skew unfairly one way or the other. So let's talk about the Hocking Hills. First of all, we'll talk about visitation and interest. So when we surveyed these people, and these 1,000 folks, and when we talked to them about places they've ever visited before, ever, in their travel histories, as you can see, 63% of those 1,000, so about 630 of them, said they've been to Gatlinburg, Great Smoky Mountains. Next biggest group was Lake Erie Shores and Islands. And impressively, almost 30% of them have been, almost a third of them have been to the Hocking Hills before in those markets. So that's good news. Now check this out. When we ask them, if you've been, which one of these have you been to in the last 2 years? There, look at that, Hocking Hills, right there at the top of the pack. So you have Lake Erie Shores and Islands with 27%, Hocking Hills 26%. By the way, there's always a margin of error in survey research, so it's probably about plus or minus 2% here. So anything that's within 2% is percentage points of each other is what we call statistically insignificant. It's flat. So basically, you're at the top of the you're at the top bananas here with Lake Erie shores and islands in there. So that's actually pretty impressive. That within the last 2 years, this group said they more said they visited you than actually Gatlinburg. In there. Let's talk about destination intent to travel within the next 12 months. Again, pretty darn good. Almost a quarter of the audience said they plan on taking a trip here within the next 12 months. We talk about something called the hot buttons. So remember I mentioned earlier about how the consumer makes their decision on where they're going to travel in there. Well, from a destination marketing perspective, if you're going to get people to pick your place, pick the Hocking Hills over Gatlinburg or Seneca Caverns or any of these places in here, you're going to have to begin your messaging hitting some of these travel motivators, these factors. And these travel motivators will translate into hot buttons, and I'll talk about that here in a moment. But when we asked all these people about what are the most important factors to them in travel decisions, excitement, adult destination, so forth, that, these are all the key factors that come up on a regular basis in terms of travel motivators. And excitement, the order might switch a little bit, but excitement is almost always number one. It's got to be, you got to demonstrate that this is an exciting destination. If I think this place is exciting, I'm going there. And then notice, in this group, it's adults, a little bit over family in there. So it's got to be something for me first, and then I'll worry about the kids. Ellen likes that. So we put these people through about 60 questions, and about 50 plus of those questions are what we call an image battery, a whole bunch of different image attributes about these destinations. Would this destination be good for this, good for that, and so forth. And all these attributes correlate into what we call our top 10 hot buttons in there. It means we're basically asking the same question several different ways. What we found out many, many years ago is if you really want to find out what motivates consumers, don't ask them directly. I'll tell you a quick little side story. So many years ago, in our early days, almost 40 years ago, we got hired by a major cereal manufacturer out of Battle Creek, Michigan. Rhymes with Smellogs, you might have heard of them in there. And we were doing some focus groups on some breakfast cereals, that concept that they were thinking about rolling out. So they had a bunch of soccer moms all sitting in this focus group table with us, and our moderator was sitting there with them, and he asked the moms, he said, okay, right around the table, go around the table, you all tell me what's the #1 most important thing in your decision-making process. What's most important to you, and what brand of breakfast cereal you buy for your children in there. And guess what every single mom said to a T? Nutrition. Nutrition, thank you, yes. Nutrition, health, vitamins. So the next question we followed up with was, so tell us, what are the last 3 brands of breakfast cereals you put in your shopping cart? Mom's got all red-faced, right? Because it was Fruit Loops and Cocoa Crisps and so forth. And so when the third question we asked, okay, you had said nutrition, but you did that. Why? And then the truth started coming out. Well, it's because, you know what? My kid won't eat the real healthy stuff, and they'll eat the sugary stuff, and the sugary stuff does have some vitamins and minerals in it according to the box, so getting something is better than nothing, right? Or my kid was causing such a scene over Fruit Loops in the shop in the store, that's what I took to shut them up, to get out the door, right? So you don't always ask directly. So what we take the same approach in our image studies. So all those 55 plus factors that we're talking to folks about in there, they all correlate into these hot buttons. Here, all those questions kind of fall under one of these categories. And if you are doing a good job in destination marketing, what we found, there's a direct correlation. If you're doing a great job in your marketing messages, you must be hitting on a good number of these hot buttons in there. Those hot buttons are, they have to see the place as a fun place, a must-see destination, interesting place, exciting place, truly unique scenery, beautiful scenery and setting, lots to see and do, good for an adult vacation, a real adventure, and popular with travelers. You have to be hitting, you don't have to hit every hot button, but you have to be hitting on some of those, or you're not going to make it onto that final decision list in there. So let's fast forward, and actually at the end of the survey, when we showed folks the advertising that's been done this past year for the Hocking Hills. And we have a decent story to tell you. 28% of those that we surveyed actually were aware of the marketing that had been done by Hocking Hills. And it's what we call direct recall. You'll see here in a second. We show them the actual creative in there. So 28%, which given the budget size of about $500,000, Karen,
in just for
paid media, right, just the paid media, that's actually, given those markets, all those markets, that's actually pretty good. You know, ideally you want to get closer to 50% awareness and so forth, but that's a budgetary factor because you got to buy more frequency and reach in those markets. But given how competitive these markets are, how crowded these markets are with travel messages, that's actually pretty darn good. So pat yourselves on the back there. So let's talk about the awareness by market there. Obviously Ohio, no surprise there, your home market saw the greatest awareness in there, and also proportionally your media spend it probably reflected as well. Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan kind of come on top, and then Indiana, Pennsylvania, Chicago are all kind of like the next bunch, and West Virginia is kind of the lowest awareness there. In terms of the medium, this was mostly print and digital campaign, and as you can see, print and digital recall and combinations of print and digital all responded well. You might be doing some math here and saying, well, how does that add up to 28? Well, some people have seen more than one type of media. In there, the creative, this is the creative samples that we showed them from the campaign there. And again, pretty good balanced awareness across the board from the various types. And again, because people identified seeing more than one, which means that talks to the frequency and reach that you're getting in there. So pretty good, decent media buy. You hope that they see more than one types of your campaign, and that definitely happened. The average, at least an average of at least 2 to 2.5 ads we're seeing in the market there. Same thing on the digital creative. There we did the same thing, and again, kind of people have seen at least 2 to 2.5 times different ads there. So let's take a step back now and talk about your image versus the competitive set. What do people think of you on all these attributes? We ask the same questions. Is this a great place for hiking? We'll ask the same question about all these different competitors. So Hocking Hills, West Virginia, Gatlinburg, et cetera, et cetera. So here's where the story starts to tell itself in here. Your image versus your competition. On attributes like, and again, I could spend the next 3 hours showing you all 55 slides. I'm not, but just pulled out a couple key ones. Here's a place I would really enjoy visiting. One of those key factors that feeds up into the hot buttons here. As you can see, 41% of those people that we asked that question strongly agree with that statement in there. We show them, we kind of give them a scale, like a 1 to 10 scale. How strongly do you agree with this statement? 0 being not at all right, and 10 being the highest, most strongly agreed in there. So 41% of those that we asked strongly agreed with that statement. Gatlinburg, the high end, 58%. Now don't go beating yourself up because you're at the tail end of this pack in the competitive set. Again, a lot of that is a factor of your marketing prowess that you were able to put in that in there. Not enough people, as you'll see, it's not enough people know about you yet. I'll show you a little bit later what happens when they do find out about you. They do experience you. It changes that drastically. Excellent value for the money in terms of affordability. Perfect. You're right there in line. Again, the plus or minus 2% margin error, you're right in the pack in there. You are seen as a good value proposition for those people in those markets. So here's all those factors that we talked about earlier, all those motivators in there. Your overall image versus your competition, for the most part, you're seen as pretty much in line with most of your competitive set, lagging a little bit behind, but where you're really lagging is because there's a 500-pound gorilla in your competitive set. It's called Smoky Mountains, right? Gatlinburg, those areas. When we take Gatlinburg out of there and balance it out with these other 4 destinations that we measured against, you'll see it smooths out a lot more even in there. So, this is one of those things where, yeah, the bad news is you're not #1 across the board, but the good news is that, your image is relatively flat against the competition, but it's not a bad image against the competition in there. So, which actually works to your advantage because you're that surprising gem as you'll see when people do discover you here. And those of you who live here long enough or have businesses in the community, you know that. You see that. So let's talk about what that impact does on measures that are just short of the actual direct sale. So when people are aware of your advertising, that statement of a place I really enjoy visiting, those who are unaware of your advertising, only 33% strongly agreed with that statement. Those who saw your marketing campaign, almost double, almost 60% agreed with that, strongly agreed with that. Same thing with that excellent value for the money, that same factor there. If they didn't see your marketing campaign, 34%. If they saw it, 53%. Marketing works, people. Wow. Look at all these image attributes that we talked about, all these travel motivators in there. If they were the green bars, those who were aware, the red bars, those who were unaware. Sorry for the little eye chart for those of you sitting here in the back. But look at that, almost a 2-to-1 lift across the board in the image of your destination for all these desirable factors. Now, the attributes that were most impacted by your advertising, remember those hot buttons? Remember those 10 hot buttons that I told you that you really need to be hitting some of those in there? Everything with a little blue arrow by it is a hot button factor. It's something that correlates to a hot button, one of those hot button factors in there. And this percentage is on the right here. This is the difference between those who are aware or unaware and who said they strongly agree with that. So look at this. In the first 10 factors that we measured, 5 of them are hot buttons. That's great news. Your marketing is on message in there. And further on down, you see they still hit with over 20% lift in image. Just incredible. Really, really great numbers across the board in there. Now, let's talk about your advertising impact on the intent to visit. When we asked the question, do you plan on coming to the Hocking Hills within the next 12 months? Those who never saw your marketing campaign, only 11% of them said, yeah, sure, I do. But those who saw your campaign, half, 51%, over half, said, yeah, we're planning a visit. So you are hitting their hot buttons. You're getting on the consideration set. All those things that were, remember those slides a few slides ago, I showed you your image strengths versus your competitive set? There was really only one that really stood out more than anything, given your competitive set, and that was your location in there, your geographic location. Because of where Ohio is and it's located and where you're able to spend your media dollars and so forth in there, you're probably one of your biggest strengths right now was just the fact that you're seen as not too far away. And that probably also influences the intent to visit in the short term, because you know what? If I only have to drive 2 or 3 hours to get there versus driving a whole day to get there, more likely I'm going to go and say, what the heck, I'll try out these Hocking Hills ones. So that's good, that works in your favor. Are your image weaknesses versus the competition in there? So these are some hot buttons too. Now again, this is the difference in the percent who strongly agreed. It doesn't mean that it's a negative, it just means that you're lagging behind your competitive set. So unique scenery, interesting place, lots to see and do, truly beautiful scenery setting, good for an adult vacation. Those are all factors contributing to hot buttons in there. Oops, backwards. And again, it kind of continues down. And again, you can pour over the charts later and see all that. Here's one of your best stories, your product delivery. I've heard this as a former state tourism director. I hear it all the time. People will call me or people will get emails. You'd always talked about the Hocking Hills, Amir, but I never knew until I came down here. I couldn't imagine. You know? So those who have been versus those who've never visited. Those who have been are the green bar, those who've never visited are the red bar there. For those who have been, look at that, almost 2-to-1 lift across the board, and they're seeing the Hocking Hills. I've been there, heck yeah, it's exciting. It's an adult destination, it's, uniqueness, etc. You've got your experiences are definitely hitting on the right thing. And when we look at the product strength versus the image, your hot buttons pop up really, really nicely in there, and all the factors that we measure in there. I mean, we're talking about double-digit lift across the board. These are all 20. For us to have to start in the 30s, and your worst scoring hot buttons are 20% lift. Oh my God, that's incredible. The bottom line is here. And this is so important for a destination because there are a lot of destinations we work with that can't say the same thing, that there were no significant perceived product weaknesses versus the image. And that'll play into your marketing here. I'll show you how in just a minute. There was one other thing that we took a look at. And this is something that we did some groundbreaking research about 3 years ago that we started, and we've now replicated this many, many times for a lot of our clients. And an image study like this is a perfect place to do this. As a destination marketer, Karen knows this, I've known this for years, it's been no secret. People like to live, and those of you, anybody here is in economic development, it's no secret. People like to live and work where they like to play. We've always kind of intuitively known that, but there's never been the data to prove it before. Well, we now do that, and we demonstrate there is a direct correlation between the image of this destination as a place to visit for tourism purposes to other economic development factors beyond tourism. So we added about half a dozen questions to our survey. And these are all economic development related beyond tourism. Talk to me about Hocking Hills as a good place to live, a good place to start a career, start a business, attend college, purchase a second home. That never happens down here. And a good place to retire. All very important economic development efforts, recruitment efforts in there. Well, guess what? Those who were aware of your marketing campaign versus those who were unaware of your marketing campaign, in every instance were almost at least twice as likely to strongly agree that this destination is a good place for all those other economic development factors. Direct correlation. And those of us in destination marketing, we always knew if we can get the travel writer or the tour operator or those who can give us the PR on what we call the FAM tour, the familiarization tour, we can get them into the destination, their image of the destination will skyrocket. Same thing here. You get the visitors, you get people to come in and experience your destination. It's almost triple, across the board, almost triple-digit growth in the image of the destination for all these factors. Why? Because I showed you your product is meeting or exceeding expectations across the board. You're not over-promising and under-delivering.
Oh.
When you add, the sweet spot is if they've seen the marketing and then they came, hallelujah, triple-digit growth across the board in all those factors. You get the combination. That's the sweet spot. That's the honey. That's what you really want to get. So I told you a bunch of little stories. Let me pull this all together. What do you do with this? Okay, that's great, interesting stuff you told me. I mean, a few interesting factoids here and there. But what do we do with this? So let's talk about that in there. So first, we'll talk about some of the challenges that came out, obviously. You have some competitive challenges, obviously. You know, we talked about Gatlinburg, Great Smoky Mountains. That's the big kahuna that's kind of the gold standard in terms of your competitive set that you're being viewed against. While you do share some strengths with these other destinations, most of the strengths that you have aren't as highly important as some of the ones that are putting the Gatlinburgs in the lead. We'll talk about that here in a second. You do have a few important strengths which you share the leads with others. Beautiful parks, okay, you knew that. Good place for hiking, backpacking, camping. Okay, that's all in line with your product. That's a good thing in there. You're already promoting that aspect of it. Then you've got a few other less important shared strengths with your key competitors in there. Great for rock climbing and appealing. It's a little less important, obviously, because it's more of a niche, right? The majority of your visitors aren't into rock climbing. But there's an opportunity to market to those folks, but it's a niche and it shouldn't have the main thrust of your marketing dollars in there. And of course, you have good weather in the fall. But think about who your competitive set is. They all have good weather in the fall. So how do you differentiate that, right? So looking at product delivery, this is what I spoke about 5 minutes ago. The effective visitation on image, we saw an incredible strength. Again, you guys are meeting and exceeding, actually you're exceeding expectations almost across the board in there, which is nice for you, and this is why I said this is really important in your marketing. If your product actually meets and exceeds the expectations of the visitor, first-time visitor, before they get there, you can safely promote your offerings without fear of the overpromise. That is so essential because there are so many destinations out there that do sometimes suffer from overpromising on some aspect or some attribute, and then the consumer comes, and you know what happens. Those of you in business know what happens. If you overpromise and underdeliver, you will not only lose that customer, they will tell 10 of their friends, and that will have a bigger picture thing. So again, you're more than delivering on your promise to the experience. The good news is that you are greatly affected by visitation, as I pointed out to you. There's nothing better. If you can just get them in here once, you've got raving, mad, happy fans about you guys, and they're willing to tell everybody about you. In comparison to most destinations that we've measured over the years, this attribute, this lift that we've seen from visitation is some of the highest we've ever measured, quite frankly, in there. Usually the visit generates about a 10 to 15% average improvement in the image of the destination across those key attributes. And as you saw there, it was between 20 to 30%. So huge, double what we usually see. We're really, really floored by that. We actually ran the numbers 3 times on that just to make sure. So yeah. So some more conclusions. So again, there's surprise, no real shortcomings, and then the halo effect. We talked about the other economic development factors. You are making a destination that is more attractive for other economic development efforts. Tourism, I'm sure, is not the only priority of this community. It's a major one, but it's not the only one. But the fact that you're doing a good job marketing and that you are not over-promising and under-delivering the product is making you much more attractive for other factors. There. All this leads me to what I like to call my golden insight. If you're ever taking marketing classes in college, I always had a professor who always talked about the golden insight. What do I take away from this? When we look at everything across the board, how do I activate this into my marketing? The core positioning for Hocking Hills should be excitement. It's one of the most important drivers, as you saw, and especially against your competitive set. Keep focusing on the excitement. Even though you're not yet considered the leader in excitement in there, you're considered equal or nearly equal with the competition. Remember, you saw that once you factored out Gatlinburg. You saw you were right there in line with everybody else. You have an opportunity to sneak ahead of them here. And again, because their visitors are strongly agreeing in overwhelming numbers that you do deliver an exciting product in there, you don't have to worry about over-promising and under-delivering in there. Although your advertising imagery reflects a lot of the high points like unspoiled natural scenery, safe, friendly, etc., your message of excitement needs to be delivered more than just singular images. A lot of your creative has traditionally been that beautiful picture from the park in some form or fashion, an angle, a waterfall, old man's cave, whatever it is, that's what you've been showing. You've got to add some additional imagery to reinforce the excitement of there's lots to see and do. Because here's the thing. Fine, you hooked my wife and I to come down here to spend the weekend. I'm interested in spending a weekend there because I see my wife and I love hiking, and we can go to the park, and it's fantastic. But what are we going to do at sunset? What am I doing after dark? Where am I going to eat? Is there anything to do? Is there any nightlife? Is there any places to hang out? What's going to happen there? And you got to counter the areas of image weakness, especially the uniqueness and sightseeing. So remember, you didn't score that great on the uniqueness part of things and on the sightseeing part of things compared to your competitive set. A little more imagery will go a long way in solving that. Resist the temptation to focus on that singular image once again. There. Incorporating images of restaurants, arts or culture, special festivals. You have the Airstreams recently. Those types of things show there's a vitality and a vibrancy beyond just the natural beauty that you have surrounding this community. And it's important to get that message out there too. That's the golden insight. I hope I've told you a somewhat entertaining story. I hope I can tell Ben that his dad wasn't such a dud in there. And I'm around, so if you got any questions, I'm very happy to take them right now.
Questions?
Yes. And please introduce yourself and who you represent so I have an idea of who I'm talking to.
Carol Mackey, CMC Real Estate Group.
Yep.
What adult destination appeared high up on several of those charts? You remember Gene Matheny in Fairfield County? He used to say people came down here to drink and have sex. What more is there? I mean, what are the?
We don't ask the sex question. We don't ask procreation.
What are they looking for in an adult destination?
So they are looking where they can eat and drink for sure. They're looking, what can occupy my passion of the day, whether it's, I used to give this presentation talking about how, we kind of live in an age of people get, for adults, it's about getting away to relax, to reconnect, to recharge your batteries and so forth. Fine, you get your outdoor product takes care of that. A beautiful hike in one of the parks here, and life is great. You've refocused again. Just sitting out on a porch or a deck somewhere in a cabin or an inn is a great thing too. In there, but for adults, yes, it's got to be, where can I go grab something nice to eat? Where can I grab, where can I have a drink? People are looking for authentic experiences. Is there opportunity for interaction with locals that won't just see me as a bothersome tourist who took a parking space or crowded up the restaurant or the bar? In there, is there someplace to find out a little bit more about what makes this community tick? Especially these days, people really want to, this age group called millennial over here. They really want to know what makes things tick. They really want to look behind the scenes. So right now, us Gen Xers and the Boomers, most of us here in this audience, we take a lot of things on the surface, but these millennials and then the Gen Z coming after them, they really wanted to get behind the scenes. So if you have opportunities, if they can talk to local artisans, they can talk to those kind of folks. That really will drive them. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Other questions?
I've got another one.
Yeah. Well,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh no, I insist.
You go. How did you have a way of figuring out how many had been here as day trippers or the duration of their stays?
We weren't doing a visitor profile, so we weren't asking about all their activities. This was just an image study.
Okay.
There's a different kind of study where you do a visitor profile and you ask them a whole bunch of their trip attributes and the activities they engage in. We're just asking for their image of the destination.
That's what this is doing.
Yeah.
That's what this is doing.
Yeah. So I can't tell you how many were day trippers or overnighters, but if you look at the breakout of the various markets, Ohio was more likely day tripper. They're the close-in markets, and further out, Chicago, I guarantee you, they weren't day trippers.
So Dave Motter, my wife Michelle and I own Carefree Cabins.
Oh, yeah, great.
I was wondering, did you happen to see the opposite effect with places like Gatlinburg, where people visit and then don't necessarily want to go back? Because I've had that personally. I've been there. I don't care to go back, and I've talked to other people that say they've been to Gatlinburg, they've been to Hocking Hills. What they love about Hocking Hills is it hasn't turned into Gatlinburg.
Yeah. So we weren't analyzing Gatlinburg in the study, but I can tell you we have other clients that also deal with those perceived images of over-tourism,
right.
So to speak, and when the consumer's actually feeling that does show up. That does show up in other destinations, and where the image, it shows up in factors like a good place to get away.
Right.
Because if I'm fighting crowds, I don't feel like I'm getting away suddenly. There may be as much as I would have if I went someplace a little more serene or peaceful.
Okay.
But again, it's a personal thing. Some people, if it's a couple coming from New York City, they don't mind the crowds so much. So maybe what you think are big crowds here isn't seen as a big crowd to them. Everything's
right.
relative. But we have seen it factor into other destinations. That safety and security, interesting, will go down when in destinations that are seen as being overcrowded in there, because the more hustle bustle, the more there. Somebody trying to rip me off. I better have to somebody lock my doors, keep my hand on my wallet, whatever, those types of things. So there, as you can see, you're not dealing with that right now. So you're looking pretty good.
Ellen being at Cedar Falls. It's probably more of a question for Karen is, once you've gotten all this data and the survey you're doing, and what's the plan for the board and the association to do with all the information?
We are gathering through the resident survey and the visitor survey. We're doing the data gathering, but then we will work with professional consulting firm to tell us what it all means. We're not going to try to self-analyze what we're collecting, because that kind of data really needs, you know, an outside look. When you're too close to it, you don't see it properly. So, which is one of the reasons why it's so important to find out what our residents feel about tourism. Because, you know, I live here, so when I get caught in a traffic jam on 664, I think, hey, cool, look at all these people. But if I worked at GE every day and wasn't involved in tourism and I'm sitting in that traffic jam, I'd probably have a different attitude. So, but for us to try to take the data and analyze it, we're too close to it. So again, we'll be seeking out, and Amir and I have already had some conversation about other consulting firms that specialize in that we can work with.
Yeah, but well, I guess what I didn't phrase a question.
Oh, okay.
well.
She was no- what's
So,
gonna happen
what,
we're doing
once you have all that data
Oh,
and
then-
recommendations and suggestions, what's your plan to do with that?
Then
Is that
we make
gonna
appropriate
direct you?
adjustments. You bet it's gonna direct us. That's been the whole reason we did the image assessment. I first called to Amir, and I think I said, we need to do a brand assessment. You know, I wanna make sure that our brand is relevant. And that's when we got to talking about what Longwoods does with this image assessment, and I said, well, that's gonna answer the questions that I want. For example, putting Gatlinburg and the Smoky Mountains in there, I had no doubt where they were gonna end up in these charts.
Sure.
No doubt whatsoever. Had we just said Pigeon Forge, I would expect completely different results, had we not included Gatlinburg and the Smoky Mountains. But we wanted to see, actually Seneca Caverns in West Virginia outperformed what I expected.
Yep.
Because I'd never heard of them. When I went out to look, to select, to figure out what and our competitive set is larger, but there was obviously a number of destinations for the sake of this study. But what we looked for were other destinations that did have similar attributes, and so that were nature-based, that had a similar lodging mix, because our lodging mix is quite unique. I frequently hear from local folks saying, we don't want to be Pigeon Forge. And I can now tell them with all honesty that unless 72 new hotels open in Logan, we're safe. Because we're not, you know, because that's what it's going to take in order to be, and I don't want to be Pigeon Forge. It's an assault to the senses, so, in my opinion. So we've got people in our competitive set that I know have got budgets 15 to 20 times the size of ours. But we still need to know that, and then we will make adjustments with our creative, with what we do digital. We do now know that print and digital are both important.
Oh,
We
yeah.
cannot just go all digital or all print. You got to do both. And this is not the first study that I've seen that backs that up. So we will adjust accordingly.
And so when do you anticipate you're gonna have the rest of the survey and analysis in and whatever other consulting firm and a report back to, hey, we've now gathered it 100% and here's what our recommendations and give a timeline?
I'm hoping to have all the data collected. Well, the visitor intercept survey that we're doing in destination will be ongoing. That's information we need to be collecting all the time. So that's going to be ongoing, but by season. So at the end, we will have the one that's currently out there is a spring, summer, and then we will do a fall, because fall is its own unique animal, and then a winter. But the next stage where we'll be taking the data that we've collected from residents and from visitors will probably be toward the end of October. And then at that point, we'll have a significant quantity of data to hand off to experts that analyze it and come back with this is, well, first of all, this is what the data is telling us, and this is what we recommend you do with it.
Karen, what's the one you said that's ongoing? Is that the one on the postcard?
Yes, yeah, that's just something that we should be doing all the time, so that we are hearing back from our visitors, because it will help direct us with product development, with, you know, what we're promoting, how we're where we are, because one of the questions in the survey is, what's your home zip code? So if we see a significant number of visitors who are really enjoying, and one of the most important things for us at HHTA is that we're marketing to attract people that will appreciate and respect this destination, not just doing the mass, you know, hey, everybody and anybody come here. That's what they do in Gatlinburg, and that's what you get. So that's not what we want to do. I'm totally fine with Gatlinburg always being ahead of us in those numbers. I'm cool with that.
Well, it's not a question of having the most visitors, it's having the right kind of
Exactly.
visitor mix, right? That's what you want. You want the one that's probably going to stay the longest, spend the most money, you know, utilize the more parts of the tourism economy. You know, not just the one that holds up in the cabin all weekend, but the one that actually comes down to
goes
town
out.
and spends some money in the community, you know, beyond that and so forth. So that's what, and all this data will really feed into that for, not just for Karen, for who she's gonna market to, but as she said, the product development side of things. What are you know, what's missing between that exit at 664 from Karen's Visitor Center all the way into Logan? What are you missing between here that's going to get people to come into Logan in there? You know, and you got to think about those sides. It's connecting the dots in terms of your economic development strategy for tourism infrastructure.
Well, and certainly, which is why we've done what the amount that we've invested in revitalization of downtown Logan. Because from my experience in this business, the one thing that will make somebody make a left-hand turn is historic downtown waterfront, but we don't have waterfront. So we gotta go with historic downtown, because years ago,
We just need more rain.
the founders of the city decided to move downtown away from the river instead of, you know, and also part of it is, I'll be frank, we need to get them to get off at 93 to come to downtown, because from 664 to historic downtown, it's blight. I'm not gonna be polite about it. It's blight. It's very unattractive. And the sad part is that right past the unattractive part that you see from Hunter is the river. It's this fabulous riverfront property, you know. But I do know that people will go out of their way to visit a place, a historic downtown, because they assume, now this is where we got to meet their expectations. The assumption is that there will be unique shopping opportunities and eateries, and that's what they want. And you know, they're not going down to renew their driver's license or look for a lawyer. So we have, downtown Logan's got to develop to meet those expectations.